Hello, folks out there. This episode of the podcast is partnered by Audible. Greg, you know what I love about Audible?
What do you love about Audible,
I
John?
don't have to pick up a book anymore and carry it around with me. In fact, I carry it around in my phone, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. They literally keep thousands of titles right on your phone, accessible at any time when you're driving, when you're cooking, when you're mowing the lawn, changing a diaper, doesn't matter. It's all right there at your fingertips, John. They've got podcasts, they've got lectures, they've got some like health and wellness and like fitness series on there that if you just are looking for something to fill that gap, like you're not getting into a book right now, it's all there for you, man.
If you're a member, Greg, what's cool about it is you get 3 titles per month. The first one, you can pick whatever you want. Like I've said, I'll probably start hitting up some of those health and wellness books. And then what's awesome is they have 2 Audible exclusives. Exclusives, folks. You can't get it anywhere else.
It's true. That is very true. So if you guys want to get on the Audible train, you can go to audibletrial.com/JATG. That stands for Johnny and the Greg. Hook yourself up with a 30-day free trial. No promises, no nothing. If you don't like it, which I can't imagine you're not going to like it, you can cancel at any time. But the great thing about that is the books you get during your free trial, or if at any time, those books are yours. Like you get to keep them. You can listen to them nonstop, anytime, all the time.
Sounds like a deal to me, man. So if you guys are smart, like I know you guys are, because you already listen to this podcast, sign yourself up, guys. What do you got to lose? It's 30-day free trial, and it's books, it's knowledge. Gotta drink it up.
It is. It is. So one more time, it is audibletrial.com/JATG.
I was super excited about this episode.
Yeah, it was a whole lot of fun.
Very fun. Yeah. We were lucky enough to talk with producer Laura Coconato. And she's doing the Netflix show Down to Earth with Zac Efron, which Greg and I kind of got hooked on. Just one of those things that you click on it, you're lucky enough to click on it, and it just takes you through this ride. And she was gracious enough to sit down with us and talk to us and tell us her side of the story.
Yeah, she's a producer on the show. Did a ton of background work. Like on screen you see Darren and Zach, but really a lot of that stuff that happened behind the scenes was her setting that up, making it work. And she came on and she really kind of went through her history of getting to be a producer and how that worked and kind of her journey and what led up to the show, and then we focused on the show. So it was a great episode. We had a ton of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, everybody, Laura Coconato. Hello, Laura Coconato. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, you know what's awesome about that? That is such a fun word to say. I've been walking around my house saying it all day long.
It's a little bit like the scene in Elf where he's like Francisco.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's awesome. So how are you, Laura?
I'm good. I am. I'm like, it's that Sunday where you kind of I like take care of all of the little things around the house that I need to take care of, and like, but I'm also able to like have my tea and have that downtime. So I feel like I'm relaxed going into another like big work week. So how about you guys?
Greg, you want to go?
Oh, sure. I mean, Sundays for me around here, I'm in the upper Midwest. I'm in Wisconsin. So the Green Bay Packers are kind of our thing. And so it's football season. So I was watching football all day and folding laundry, which is, kind of what you do on the sun. Yeah, it's all the little things like you talk about. And when people are like, hey, do you want to come over? We're going to have like a Packer party and watch the game. I'm like, oh, I could, but how does my laundry get folded? When am I going to do that?
Yeah. I feel like that's actually very relaxing watching sports. I grew up watching baseball, and I know a lot of people find baseball boring, but I actually find baseball to be very therapeutic, which sounds very weird, I know. But like, but also you can like definitely take care of your laundry while watching.
That's
Yep.
true.
Well,
Who's your team?
the New York.
Who's
Yankees.
your? Oh, yeah.
The Yankees.
All
Yeah.
right.
My
you
dad's
New
from
York?
New York. Yeah. No, I'm from Florida, but my dad's from New York, and we were kind of like out of the womb. He was like cheering like "Let's go Yankees." And stuff.
Ah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're from Florida originally?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That must be nice. What part of Florida?
Like dead smack middle of the state, right in between Tampa and Orlando. It's a little town called Lake Wales. Not many people have heard of it, but
Okay. Have you ever heard of Sanford?
yes, I have actually.
That's where my father comes from. Sanford.
Okay, yeah.
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 So,
That's kind of near Orlando.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cool.
They have an airport there too. It's not the airport I fly into, but for some reason, I'm always like, every time I think of Sanford, I think of the airport.
I think of Sanford and Son.
There you go.
That's the first thing that popped into my head.
Yeah.
Are you in LA now?
I am in LA now. Yeah.
How's quarantine treating you?
It's not that bad. Like considering everything, I worked from home a lot last year when I wasn't in post production for Down to Earth. So I've gotten used to working from home. I think what is hard for me now is that I live in an apartment and I have to remind myself to get outside because of quarantine, like. And here I don't know how it is by you all, but like we've definitely we went through a strict period initially, and then it kind of they came out of a little bit, and I think we're about to go in it again. My life hasn't really changed, but it's more of like instead of going to a coffee shop, like often I would break things up by going and meeting someone for dinner or lunch or going to a coffee shop. And because that went away for a period of time, I kind of had to become more conscious of like, okay, I need to go to a park or I need to go to the beach, I need to go do something. Because you'll what I'll find is like even now, because I'm pretty busy with work, like 2 days will go by and I'll realize like I haven't even left the house, and I'll literally just be like, okay, I need to go walk around the neighborhood. So even just doing that sometimes is nice. But when things opened back up again, I was meeting some people for outdoor dining and doing kind of some social distancing, like coffees or hangouts at parks. So that was kind of nice. But now that we're kind of going back in a strict lockdown again, I think it's again just making sure I get out and go put my feet in the grass.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important. I think Greg and my wife, they're working from home. And Greg, if you're anything like my wife, you guys are just nose to the grindstone. And before you know it, you lift your head up and it's 9 o'clock at night. And you're like, have you moved? Have you?
Yeah. Right.
Because Laura, I work out in the field. I work in grocery stores all day, visiting grocery stores. I'm a sales rep. So I'm out every day. I see the sunshine. I breathe the air. So the only difference is I have a mask on,
Right,
So,
right.
but yeah, it is crazy. And I think it is really important. My wife started doing sun salutations. I think it's at least every hour. She started just doing like 10 of them and then getting back to what she's got to do, which I think you got to do.
Totally.
What is that? I don't know.
It's like a yoga warm up. It's actually pretty intense if you actually like really, if you just go through the regular flow of it. But I mean, if you're stretching as far as you can with all those movements and taking your time, it's tough. It's very tough, but it's good.
Yeah.
All right, Laura, enough about my wife's yoga. We're here to talk to you today because first off, I'm very excited because I've quickly become a fan of yours. Your Instagram page, I really like. I don't know if you've set out to do this or not, but it's like you have these 9-minute podcasts, and they're great. They're great. So the question that has been bothering me since I saw it is, how is your twerking? And I need to know, how is your Quadragino doing? How's that going?
Oh man, horrible. I've been such a bad student. Like
wait, the Quadragino or the twerking? I
both.
mean,
Both.
Okay.
Student of both. It's funny because actually about 2 weeks ago I like had come across that one again, and I literally was like, I'm gonna take 10 minutes tonight and just practice. And it was maybe 2 minutes. And I tried to do it and I was like, yeah, I still don't get it. But Cameron is right. He's always like, you have to practice. And I see him a lot and he is always twerking. So anytime you were around him, there is some level, like at some point he starts twerking and then you start kind of trying to twerk.
Like just standing at a bus stop or something and he starts to kind of get a little bump going on and you're like, what?
He is the type of person where he will be anywhere. And that's what he'll say. He's like, you can always dance anywhere. You can always do this anywhere. And so that's why he'll get on to me and be like, there's no excuse for you not to practice because you can work anywhere.
So when he walks in the room, are you like, oh shit, I haven't practiced? Oh
yes!
shit.
And there's moments I was like, oh, don't ask me about it. Don't ask me about it. But he and I are always, he's so positive, and he and I do this thing where we always just tell each other that the other person is the most amazing person in the world. So we get through that first, and then it's usually like I kind of glide away, hoping that he doesn't also ask me how that twerking is going.
How did you, was that the plan, was to start these little podcasts? Like, because they're really good and you should keep it going. They're good.
I appreciate you saying that. I started them, it was last year, and even though I'm a storyteller, I've often struggled. I don't know if struggle is like the right word, but I get uncomfortable being in front of people, and I deal with a lot of anxiety being in front of people. And it's kind of funny because once I do it, I get in the flow, I don't think about it, but it's that initial, like, I don't intentionally put myself in front of the camera. I don't seek that stuff out because I have often tried to hide myself. Like, I'm afraid of being seen. And so for me, I started those as a practice of becoming comfortable being seen by people. But it was this interesting thing because I was like trying to allow other people to be seen. So it was sort of like I was practicing being seen by like sharing these other perspectives and other voices.
Right.
And that's ultimately what I want to do as a storyteller. Is I really love sharing different perspectives and different voices. And so I think that also for me was like, how do I have these conversations with people where I'm able to talk about topics that, you know, not everybody might be familiar with, or might, like, even twerking. I think the thing that was kind of fun about that is a lot of people have like a negative like look at twerking.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You know, and so for me, it's like, can we look at it in a way that shows it in a different light, that someone watching who might initially have been off put by it might actually be like, oh, there's something fun with it, or maybe it's not as like sexual, or who cares if it's sexual, whatever it is. To me, it's all about bringing ideas and people and stories to people in a way that they might be open to receiving them.
Yeah.
So that was why I got started on this. But I do need to get back to them. I haven't touched them in a while.
You said I agree with what you're saying. I think that's why Greg and I started this podcast, was to get different perspectives, learn some new stuff. Greg, I doubt you ever thought we'd be talking about twerking with a producer.
No, probably some other topics other people I thought would probably bring that up, but maybe not this one. Yeah. But when you bring it, I'm interested about, the guy who's like, you can dance anywhere. In the upper Midwest, we don't do that. I mean, like we had a good friend of ours who lives, she comes from Austin, Texas, and that is a dancing culture down there. And like we were in our 20s, and so we'd go out to bars in like Madison, Wisconsin, which the bar scene's pretty good. And there'd be people dancing, and I'm, all the dudes, we're posted up at the bar, we're at our table, or if we are getting out there, we're just like, just kind of, she goes, is it like this everywhere? Or I'm like, hey, what? I'm dancing. She's like, no, like we had to drag you out here. You had to take 4 shots to get on the floor. Like, what's going on? I'm like, this is how we grew up. Like, middle school dances where the girls were in their circle, the guys were on the benches, and then when the slow song came on, we all went out and asked which girl we wanted to dance. We danced, and when the fast song came back on, we all returned to the bleachers. She's like, are you nuts? And then we went out in Texas And I'm standing there and everybody's two-stepping and like I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And a random guy comes up and he's like, and he looks at, yeah, no, she's my wife. She's like, can I dance with her? And I'm like, and she goes, yeah. So they go and dance, and I'm like, what just happened? And Heather, my friend, was like, you weren't dancing with her. Like, they think there's something wrong with you. I'm like, oh, okay. But now, and hopefully that changes because it is fun. But yeah, same thing about the super self-conscious. I'm like, I don't want to dance in front of people. That's bad. But I've never seen somebody twerking who didn't have some form of a smile on their face.
True. There's a good point. There's a good point.
I mean, even across, all types of people. I mean, if somebody's twerking, they're usually like, eh. or maybe even the lip bite kind of get a little of that going on.
Yeah. Like everybody kind of has their own approach to it, and I think like you deal. There's a level of discomfort. I think anytime you do something new, but also something that again like has such a sexual connotation to it, like I think you're sort of there's a level of like, am I doing this right? Like, am I making a fool of myself? But also, do I care? And that whatever that you're kind of going through it, people handle it in different ways, and so.
Yeah, I think one of the best quotes I've ever heard was "Dance as if no one's watching you."
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
it's great. It doesn't mean you're going to dance good.
Yeah,
it just means it's, go
but
to
it's
town.
a good practice for life because I think that that's where I was in 7th grade and my cousin taught me that. He was like, you can always find a beat. Like he didn't say you can dance anywhere, but he was like, you can always find something to dance to. And then Cameron talks about you can dance anywhere, but I've always really loved dancing. Now I'm not into like line dancing. I'm a really weird person where I don't like I don't like structure. I don't like people telling me what to do. So I'm like, if there's a line dance, I'm like, I will be dancing, but I'm going to be dancing my own way. And so, but it's a good practice of like kind of breaking through that discomfort. If you can get to that place where you just start moving and you enjoy the energy and the feel of moving and you can let go of the anxiety of what people think about you, it's a good way to tap into something deeper. And I think it's a practice even for what I was sharing about my fear in being in front of people. It's that initial getting in front of people, but once I can get into it and let go of what anybody thinks, then I usually can thrive. I can thrive anyway.
Right. Yeah. So okay, so we're going to transition this because you're a storyteller.
Yes.
How did we get to this point? How did we get here? Like, Laura, tell us your story. How did you become a producer?
So it was funny. I was never going to come to Los Angeles. I had gone to film school and I came out on a trip for school, and I came out because I was like, well, I'm never going to move there, so I might as well go see it now. And when I came here, it was just sort of like a different feeling, and I could just see myself here. And I was like, oh, it's actually like, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And so when I graduated, which was like a year and a half later, it was one of those things where I just like threw my resume out to not every company. I actually did pick companies that told stories that sort of were things that I was interested in, but I did, do a massive, here's my resume. And so I had an interview in place, and they called me up and basically said, they did a phone interview, and then they said, well, we're interested in hiring you, but can you start in, basically it was like 5 days. Mm-hmm. And I like kind of was sitting there. My dad was next to me, and he was like, if they want you to start right away, start right away. And I was just like, yeah, I'm going to start right away. And so it was like the next day we packed everything up in the car. My dad and I drove across country, and I went from like little small town to great big city. And I mean, I technically lived in Tallahassee, so I had a little bit of a bigger city, but still, nothing compares to the big city that is LA. But yeah, I moved out. I kind of through friends found a place to live, and then started my internship a couple days later. And I kept preparing my parents because I was like, you don't usually get a job from your internship. And and I really didn't think I would get a job at this one because nobody really talked to me. Like it was one of those things where like I kind of like worked really hard, but like no, very few people acknowledged it. And I was also working another internship at the time, and it was kind of funny because it was like I went to a Christmas party, and at the Christmas party, I met the wife of someone who eventually became my boss. And I had like a 5-minute conversation with her about her kids, and like she turns to her husband and was like, "You do anything that you can to get her hired," and so he did. So I ended up, and it was at Ridley Scott's company, Scott Free Productions. Really did. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but one of my favorites is Gladiator. Everybody else talks about Alien and Blade Runner, and I talk about Gladiator. But yeah, so I worked at Ridley's company. I worked on the features and television side for probably about, I guess about 2 years, because then I then switched over to the commercials and music video side and worked for another 2 years, predominantly as an assistant. Like that was kind of my life there. And it was a boot camp in a lot of ways, just to working in this industry and working for different types of people, but also working with people at such a high level. You know, within my first, I think, 6 months at the company, I worked reception, and I like in that time, like Leonardo DiCaprio came in, Brad Pitt came in, Tom Cruise came in, like all of these really big names came in within that first period of time. And, you know, you sort of have to, you very quickly get over, or I shouldn't say that about everybody, but for me, I was just sort of like, I have to very quickly get over any type of,
starstruck.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Tom Cruise! Like,
exactly.
No, John, that's not how it goes. It goes, you're Tom Cruise.
Yeah. You know, you try to be more subtle.
Yeah, short.
But I definitely, you know, you sort of have to you find the way to get past that, because at the end of the day, they're all human beings anyway. And
Tom is, because he can run for a long time, and I hear he can hold his breath, and he can do some amazing stuff. So
I don't know. He could have been a robot when he came in. It was possible, or an alien. We'll take either one of those.
Yeah, I see a sitcom coming from your start so far. It sounds like a sitcom.
That very well could be. Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
It gets interesting because I worked in that world for a couple of years, and then I decided to go freelance, and I kind of was going. I had very honestly, I guess we're just going to go there. I was actually in a depression for 2 years, and it was a slow. It was probably like a slow fall into it. Like I've dealt with depression and anxiety all my life, but this was the first time like the depression I'd experienced before was so heavy that like I couldn't get out of bed, or I had a hard time doing things. Whereas I was able to function with this. And so because I was able to function with it, I stayed in it much longer than what I probably could have had I been more in tune with what was going on with me. So I would say I was in it strongly for like a year and a half. And then it took me 6 months to kind of really come out of it. And so when what kind of brought me back to life was my boss at the time had taken me to Sweden for a job. I think we were supposed to do a movie, and the movie fell through. And so I think she really wanted me to get some kind of an experience. And so I went to Sweden for a job, and it was just sort of like experiencing a different culture, experiencing nature again, experiencing something new, just kind of brought a spark back to me. And I remember just sort of on my way home being like, I felt hope again, and I felt joy, and I felt these things that I never thought I would feel again. And I was like, I'm tired of running for myself. And I'm like, I'm tired of running from fear, and I don't ever want to lose these things again. So I want to do whatever I have to not lose these things again. And it's kind of interesting because it was like after that point, I tried to move out of the country. Like I wanted to do kind of like an eat, pray, love.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was I went back to Florida for a job. I got a freelance film job. And after the job filmed in Tampa, and I went back to my parents in Lake Wales, and I went to bed, and it was the first time in my life where I had nothing lined up. Like, I knew that the next day I was getting up and there was no job, there was no place to be, there was nothing. And when I woke up the next day, my body just completely crashed. And I just had this feeling like I'm not going to get up for a while. And I thought a while was going to be like 2.5 years, or sorry, 2.5 months, and it took 2.5 years. And so I was in Florida for about 2.5 years, and during that time, like I did continue to work. Like, I was able to work freelance as a script supervisor and as a first assistant director. So I'd kind of pop around to different areas, but I mostly really worked on myself. And so it was a combination of both. You know, it's a weird thing to say I lost my health, because people are sort of like, where did it go? But my health crashed. And so a part of rebuilding myself, I started learning about nutrition, and I started learning about movement and sleep and water and the environment. And I just became like a massive student of all of these things. And I just opened myself up to journeying. And I was like, okay, wherever this journey takes me, I'm going to go. So I kind of let go. And that was hard in the beginning, to like let go of giving up Los Angeles, because I was sort of like, okay, I feel like I'm walking away from my dreams. But I knew that, like, I wasn't physically able to function like a normal human being. And so I knew that there wasn't much I could do. But what was really special about that time was, like, I was able to still kind of do things in the film world, but I predominantly focused on myself. And I got myself to a healthy place, both physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. And I just really faced myself. And I took a practice of journaling that I do almost every day. And I committed to working on myself and always trying to be the best version of myself.
That is an amazing
really long-winded. I feel like that was
both of our faces were just totally locked in. Because when John brought up, well, you know, you going to LA, there's season 1 of your sitcom, and then this is season 2 where the main character has a crash and then is rebuilding herself for the next 2 seasons. Oh my God! I mean, and I think everybody, if you haven't had it yourself, you know somebody that has gone through depression. I mean, even the statistics are out there, especially in this country, and how mishandled some depressive states are. So your story of, like, you've got to that state, and you know, you didn't turn to like modern medicine where they just would have thrown a bunch of, you know, pharmaceuticals at you. You took that different approach, and looking at diet, looking at mental health. I mean, doing things like that. And those are the more success stories that you hear, are the people that go that route and are able to work on themselves and better themselves, more so than somebody says, hey, I've been on, you know, this antidepressant for 6 years, I feel great. I mean, you don't hear that.
Right.
Well, because the anxiety and the depression are there for a reason. I mean, that's something that I really picked up on at a young age, because, like I said, I've dealt with it since I was a kid. And I don't think it was until I was closer to an adult that I started to pick up on this. But I realized that it was a form of communication. And they exist kind of in different ways. But because I thought about, like, I had someone who threw, prescriptions at me at a young age. And I remember just sort of being like, I feel like masking it, you're missing the conversation.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's an incredible way that you look at it, that it's communication, that your body or your spirit, or I guess if you want to call the Trinity, like your body, your mind, and your spirit is trying to talk to you at the same time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like you said, they want to mask it, or not only that, they don't listen. They think to themselves, something's wrong with me. I got to take a pill to take so I can just get through my day.
Yeah.
Instead of, like you said, sitting there, looking myself in the mirror a few times, especially because, look, that is one of the most uncomfortable things you can do, really, is to look yourself in the mirror and pick out the shit that you don't like, pick out the stuff you like, and work with it. You know, a lot of people want to run from that. A lot of people think it's fine, it's fine. I'll go to a party, I'll feel good, or I'll find a boyfriend and he'll make me happy, or I'll find, you know,
looking for external kind of
yeah.
that
And
piece.
I think you should be commended. I think it's something that you should be very proud of. It's kind of weird, but I'm proud of you.
Thank
I
you.
don't know you, but
I received.
just sit
I'll
there.
take it.
We just met, but you're inspiring. That
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah, and that's not blowing smoke up your ass. Greg's probably never used that word once during a conversation that he was inspired by anything I've said. So he didn't just throw that out. What I'm saying is it's awesome, Laura. And I think I'm going to shut up and you continue to tell the rest of your story. I want to see what happens in season what are we at, 4? We at season
I think
4?
we're heading into season 4.
Okay.
Wait,
so-
I thought we were heading into season 3, but okay, but we'll skip ahead.
Well, you know, I think that climb, like the going to swim, I think that's going to take 2 seasons to really get through.
All right, fair
Like
enough.
I've never been in a pitch meeting, but I think it may be like this. Anyway.
No, I appreciate you both saying that. And I think, I mean, look, I think it's important to acknowledge with people, and I'll say this first before I dive in, like I try to acknowledge other people when they are going through things because it isn't easy. Like I would say the majority of the world runs from themselves, whether you're getting lost in prescriptions or like you said, whether it's a boyfriend or a party or work, everyone finds a reason to run away. And that's what I was doing. That I had been running from myself for so long. And I like reached such a low point that I was like, oh, this is not it is not worth it to me to run anymore. And once I started the process of facing, which not only it was really hard, but it continues to be really hard. Like it's not and I don't mean this in a negative way, like it's not a it's an empowering journey. I will never not be on it. Like I will never not face because I've seen the benefits of facing. But it is definitely one of those things where like it is always a choice to choose to face it because it's difficult. And so, you know, I try to be encouraging when I meet people who live with that mentality and do the work and work through that stuff. Like it is inspiring, and other people doing it has inspired me. And that's really during that time I listened to I actually listened to different podcasts and I read a ton of books, but there was this one podcast that I listened to almost daily by
Johnny
this guy.
And the Greg.
Johnny and the Greg was 100% it. But it was amazing because not only were all the stories about health and the host Sean was really good about breaking them down, but he was always so positive, and he was always like he always had these stories of people who came on who had hit rock bottom or had stage 4 cancer or were told they'd never have kids again, and they didn't settle for that. They made the choice to find another way there, and they always found it. And so when I listened to that almost daily, again over like a 2-year period, I went from having a negative mindset and the world is working against me and woe is me. I literally shifted my mindset to looking at everything as, okay, here's a challenge. What is the universe trying to communicate to me here? What do I need to see or change about myself in order to get through this hardship that's now facing me? And I had the belief like, oh, I can get through it. Like there is no more, you know, there's this thing in front of me and I can't move, and you know, it's the bane of my existence. I developed this mindset of like, oh, I can do anything. And you know, I can't fly, but like you still this is possible. But like I just my entire I rewired myself. And and so what's really interesting going into our season 4.
Awesome.
So what's really interesting is that I have this instinct kind of out of nowhere to go back to LA. And I hadn't been thinking about going back to LA, but I just sort of had this strong feeling for it. And so I had met Mike Semkin a couple of years ago, and he's a producer. He's Zach's producing partner, and I had reached out. We had met. We always talked about working together, and so I just randomly reached out to him and was like, "Hey, like I'm thinking about coming back to LA. Do you guys have anything going on? Like, are you looking for anybody to help?" And So we kind of like went back and forth a little bit. And then finally, like a week later, I was just like, you know what? Nothing's going to happen while I'm here. So I just bought a one-way ticket and I just like kind of spur of the moment flew back out to LA and just like dove in head first. And I didn't have a car. I didn't have a place to live. I mean, I definitely had friends out here. So, and my brother was out here. So I had a little bit of a landing ground, but like I landed, I met with Mike the next morning. He was like, you know, I have this travel show that's coming up and it just became about health and the environment. And he was like, we don't really know what to do with it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've been studying health and the environment for the past 2 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
But
that's
it talks
great.
about like the way the timing is. And so anyway, like it took a couple of months, but I finally got hired onto that job as a researcher. After the first week, they were like, you're actually doing the work of an associate producer. So we're going to give you that title. Halfway through, which I can share eventually about the Iceland episode, but halfway through, I basically kind of stepped into full-on producing. And then by the time I hit post-production, I didn't get this title, but I was basically supervising producing it with one of our editors. And so, yeah, it was kind of like you know, people joke about the fact that it was like this very quick climb, but to me, like, I think all of the work happened previously, if that makes sense.
4 seasons.
Well,
That. I mean,
and I can't remember. There was a basketball player who came out of nowhere. I think his last name was Kim or something like that. It was a couple of years ago. But when he hit big, and I don't know if he said
Kevin
the quote.
Love,
I don't know,
Greg.
I don't know
Kevin
if
Love.
I don't. You know, I'm not an NBA guy. I don't know.
Okay, never mind.
He was an Asian descent kid.
Oh,
and
no,
I think his last name was Kim. But he said, I've worked 14 years to become an overnight success. But it sounds a little bit like that. I mean, you'd put in all that work and here you are on this awesome show.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, and I was just captivated by almost every episode. And it was one of those where I've got 3 screens on. I was doing data entry for my day job, but I would just find myself be like, I need to just focus for like 10 minutes. The water episode blew me away.
Yeah, that seems to be what a lot of people love that episode a lot. And I mean, it's fascinating. Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Why?
Like, I'm like, why isn't the United States doing this? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing, guys? Like,
so before we jump into that, because we're gonna get in the show. I believe that's the part of our series where we're gonna jump into this journey here. What I was thinking about as you were telling your whole story, and I've got some people that are very close in my life that have dealt with a lot of the same issues. And one of them that she always says, when you're going through that, there's kind of 2 paths. There's the hurt people. There's hurt people hurt other people.
Yeah.
Or there's you come through the other end where it's like hurt people help people. And going through that journey, and we are a faith-based household here, so I mean, we feel like God will put you through a journey preparing you for whatever it is that's going to be next in your life. And if you hadn't gone through some of those dark places and those spots that you were able to just climb out of, that gave you the experience that you're going to run into people and they're going to need you to have gone through that to help them. And I'm getting just talking about it, but that's very much. Then that is the thing. I mean, you hear about so many people that go through that kind of thing, and given your position on what you do, you could create something huge, a film, a podcast, a project, just that, that creative type. Like you said, you're a storyteller. That story could be the groundbreaking piece for so many people, and you have that ripple effect. And I think that's fantastic.
I absolutely agree with him. We're joking, but I don't think we really are, Greg. She should make this some sort of something. Like,
I mean,
like seriously, it's a great story, and it's a great story of you coming out. And I don't want to say like, and I'm sure there were people that helped you, that supported you, that encouraged you, but at the end of the day, you dug deep and you pulled yourself out, and that's to be commended. And if one person listens to our podcast and listens to this one and they're like, hell yeah, I can do that too, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what you want, is that's what I always tell myself with, like, if you can change one person's life, like that, at the end of the day, doesn't, like, yes, you hope to reach a lot of people, but if you can reach one person, then you've done your job. And I really believe that in terms of, like, I'm a big person in treating everyone like they're a human being, because we are all human beings. But even in terms of, dealing with the celebrity all the way down to dealing with, a driver or a production assistant, like, to me, I don't treat anybody more, like, I don't treat Zach any better than I treat anybody else. Like, and because I just believe that every role is vital. I may tell stories on a big level, but, like, my sister, who's in education, she reaches people every day just by working with kids. And so it's sort of like, it's less, sometimes we get so caught up in followers, or we get so caught up in fame and money and all of these things. But at the end of the day, what the most important thing is that we are connecting with each other. And even in what you both are doing, like, you are impacting people. Like, there's no doubt to me, like, just the fact that you're wanting to meet people and hear stories, and, like, the way that you approach it, I have no doubt that, like, people are going to be drawn to that, because there's an authenticity to it. And that's what connects with people, and that's what helps create change.
Yeah, I don't mean to brag, but we're kind of a big deal.
Dude.
Well, no, we really truly appreciate it.
We recognize, and this is, I think, part of the draw that we have, or why some people, I think they like us. Just that idea that we know where we're at. We know where we're situated. We are two middle-aged white guys in the Midwest. Johnny has traveled much more than I have. I have one stamp in my passport from 20-some years ago. So, but just kind of like when in the world, when things started blowing up, and all of, like, the racial tension and all that, and we started just talking to people like, hey, we know how we look. We know where we come from. We need to learn. Like, we need to learn. Let's get some people on here. And, like, our mutual friend Danny, she helped us out a lot. Just be like, what do we talk about? What can we say? Things like that. I mean, it's this journey that we've been on has just been, let's go out and learn things. Let's try to bring people in outside of our circle and start having conversations. So
you definitely don't want to get into that echo chamber. You definitely don't want to be there.
And so many people are stuck there.
They are. And I was going to say, like, that learning component is what's important. And I think that's something that really worked for our show, and why I think our show is as successful as it is, because we didn't come in trying to lecture people. We, like, oftentimes celebrities will, they come on sort of this pedestal and want to preach. And with Zach, it was very different from that. Like, this is an interest of his. This is something that he cares about. And he also is aware that he has a platform. So he's like, I actually want to use it for something good. And so, but, like, those of us that were putting the stories together, like, I was learning. I mean, it's funny. I had somebody was, like, criticizing the Iceland episode, being like, talking about how elementary it was. And I was like, what's hilarious is that I put that together, and, like, I was like, my mind was blown. And, like, I can't tell you how many people have, like, called me up and been like, I wish that we had the Iceland episode when we were in elementary school, because they were like, I totally would have understood it a lot better than what they taught now.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get into what the show we're talking about. We're talking about, it's on Netflix. It's Down to Earth with Zac Efron. Laura is what's the actual title?
On season 1, I was technically a producer. I wore
season 1.
Yeah.
I love that you said season 1.
I know, me too.
Do we need to edit that out? I don't know.
Not yet. We'll be careful with it, as long as we don't dive too much deeper. There we go.
Okay. Being my generation, and I'm, like I said, I'm in my 40s. So when Zach hit the scene, and it was High School Musical and things like that, and I'm really just looking at it, and even that first movie where I think he was like 15, 16, maybe, when he filmed that.
With Matthew Perry?
No. The first High School Musical.
Oh, High School Musical.
And I'm looking at this, I'm like, that kid ain't even sing it. I mean, and because it obviously I was not their target market. But then by the third movie, I'm like, all right, this kid's got some talent. And then the just kind of that media storm that surrounded him,
Yeah.
and watching him go through that, and then the Zac Efron craze. Boy, I was like, I don't know about this guy. But then I saw the episode, like he disappeared, and you heard about, I mean, because it was publicized, some of his struggles.
Yeah.
The episode he did with Bear Grylls, where he's like, I can't remember the name of that show, and you got to see him as a person, and he's kind of like talking about how Hollywood had that pressure on him.
Yeah.
And how he had to deal with that pressure, and now he's like, that wasn't a good way to deal with it. Fast forward to this show, and I'm like, okay, this guy's like got some story to tell. Like he's got some real things. And so when you talk about him coming on the show, he talks a little bit about that, but just him, you're right, he wasn't pulling the celebrity, hey, I'm Zac Efron and I'm going to teach you how they're doing things in Iceland and France and Costa Rica. I mean, he was there almost as a student. And then you had Darren, who had that kind of expert level knowledge, and I had not looked him up at all before the show. And I'm like, well, that guy seems kind of fun too, and that's just that knowledgeable, but also like a good time. Like you want to hang out with that guy. And I'm just kind of like, this is great. You've got kind of this student mentor, and you can see it in Zach's eyes through a lot of the episodes where his mind is as blown as ours. As we're like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. I mean, so that's what part of what really pulled me into the show was that dichotomy between the two of them. I mean, because I'm a former educator myself. I was a high school educator. I shouldn't say former. I'm still educating people, but the just kind of that learner in me, that teacher in me, got sucked into the show. And you're just learning about all this stuff. And this would totally be for all of you, even science, sociology, some anthropology people out there. You need to watch the show and pick out which episode fits and show it in your classrooms, because it is amazing.
I had a few people that have actually talked to me about showing the Iceland episode. And I mean, I think a couple of them. I think someone sent me something that like a teacher had actually come up with lesson plans for the show, which is just so funny to me. I mean, it's like you don't, again, and even the show, how it came about, like it's not how a lot of television, especially a lot of travel TV and series like that happen. And so, for a part of it, there was a level of figuring it out. And, I will say, like, I believed in it from day one. Like the moment I had that coffee with Mike and he told me about that show, like, or, this show, I just knew. And I carried that belief all the way through. And I think that helped me because we really did hit so many obstacles, like just at every stage.
Give us one.
Yeah, tell us some stories here.
Oh my gosh, that's the thing is I have to think about what I actually can tell.
Well, can I ask a question then? Because like I said, the water episode just really hit me.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm like, I mean, I have a well in my house. I'm like, we're taking off all the filters because that's what I want to do. But that show opens, so you're in France and there's a doctor, and there's some conflict where he almost gets up and like walks out, and you're like, what happened? Like, how did this guy get so insulted that this film crew shows up and he's like, I'm an important person, and like gets up and walks out, and you're like, what's happening?
I feel like I have to be careful about how I answer that one, but ultimately he got interrupted. He was in the flow of telling these stories and giving this information. And I don't know if he had a ton of experience being on camera or not, but there is an element to having to move quickly and having to get through things, and you have things that kind of pop up. And so he had been interrupted. And I think for him, it was sort of like, I think he acted more out of frustration because he had been interrupted.
Okay.
But that was definitely something that you kind of hit. I mean, you have to be prepared for that. Like that happened. And there's a moment of it where you're like, okay, if he decides to kick us all out, not only does that scrap this particular segment,
yeah.
but pretty much anything else that we had planned for that day and the next day, you know, are done. And so you do have to be prepared for anything. But the story that I'll share that I think is probably the biggest example, and it was also kind of my stepping into a higher role, was Iceland, because Iceland was never supposed to happen. We had a show set up, an episode set up in California that we were supposed to film, and we were on our way back from Europe. So we had filmed Puerto Rico, London, France, and Sardinia. And we were literally on the flight back. We were considering, Mike had told me, and Mike is the executive producer on it. He oversees it. He had been interested in kind of looking into Scandinavia and specifically Iceland. And so he was like, let's see if there's anything there in case we can make it work. So I on the flight back, start kind of looking into Scandinavia. We land in LA on, I think it was a Friday, or no, not Friday, a Sunday. On Monday, I show up into the office to find out that our next segment, or our next episode, which we were supposed to film in 12 days, got canceled. And so Suzanne, who I was working with, she decided she was going to start looking into Mexico. And Mike was like, well, I still really want Iceland. Or at that point, he said Scandinavia. And I was like, well, I don't mind looking into it, but I can't start looking until tomorrow, Tuesday. So I get through the day's work. Tuesday, I start tapping into Scandinavia, and I'm looking at several different countries at once. And at 10:30, Mike calls me up and he's like, so if you could get me even the most roughest form, idea of creative by tomorrow morning, I think I can get money for this. And you have to understand, it takes weeks to get this stuff together. And so I just was like, okay, fine, but I can't be looking all over Scandinavia. I need to focus in on one place. Right. So I was like, I'm just gonna go with Iceland because Iceland's my gut. And he was like, I trust you. And I was like, cool. So I basically do a crash course on everything Iceland. I end up getting connected to Magnia, who is a local producer. We call them a fixer there. Okay. And so I kind of tell her what I want to do. She throws some things at me, and then the next day, I put something together, I give it to them. And then not Tuesday night, but Wednesday night, Mike was like, cool. We got greenlit, but if we're going to do this, we have to leave by next Thursday. Can you get this show together in 8 days? And it was one of those things where each time it was just and it goes back to that journey, right? The working through myself. Because each time I kept being presented with a challenge, and instead of saying no, I was just sort of like, of course I can.
Sure I can.
In 8 days. I have no idea how I'm going to make this happen, but of course I'm going to make this happen. And so, and it was very interesting because it really was I sort of kind of dug in full force, and Jackie, who was our production manager, she kind of helped me handle things on the logistics end, and then Magnia was in Iceland. But between the three of us, we didn't have a full team of people. It was three of us that put that show together in 8 days. And again, you were asking about what are some of the obstacles, to not have a show in place and then have to sort of quickly on your feet put an entire episode together.
Sure. Okay, so going into that, does a producer, are you the one that sets up this whole, we're going to go here, then we're going to go here, then we're going to go bathe in the salt pools, and then we're going to go here? Is that all you?
Yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah, that is amazing. And
because I can't coordinate vacation like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of the mystery of an average Joe. We see producer credits and we're like, what do they do?
Yeah.
For the longest time I thought producers are those are the money people, right? They cut the check and they cut the check for the best boy, and then you got to look up what a best boy is, and I mean that kind of thing. But
aren't those the guys that work for Best Buy, the Best Boys?
The
Isn't that?
best boys for Best Buys.
that's an electrician.
I mean, look, there are producers who that is their sole job is to cut the check.
Right.
And I think that often does get confusing for people. But yes, there are actual producers who your job is literally to make all of the magic happen.
Yep, you're the one setting everything up. And
I think that was exciting for me about Iceland was like, that was the first one because there were two of us who had been putting the different episodes together. You know, I would kind of do a portion of it and Suzanne would do a portion of it. And this was one where I happened to really take on the whole episode. And I really saw it the whole time. Like, I think the only thing that didn't really fit was the chocolate making. Like, everything else like specifically connected. And the only thing that like didn't fully tie in was the chocolate making. But we really, when we were in France, we wanted to find a chocolate making story and we couldn't find it then. And so when I found it here, I was like, oh, there's no way I'm letting this one. I'm letting it. I don't care if it doesn't make sense. We're gonna do it. But
So what did you
chocolate?
What did you make?
What with the chocolate? Oh,
Yeah.
I actually didn't get to make one. I got to try them. I didn't get to try Zach's. I really wanted to, but like by the time we were finished filming, I couldn't find it. So I don't know if like he actually threw it in the trash or like I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he made a good one. It seemed like his eyes got the best of him with that one. So,
Oh my God, yeah.
but that's Greg. I know we have 1,000 things we want to ask her when it comes to all this stuff. What you got? You got anything you necessarily really want to talk to her about?
Oh gosh. Well, the doctor in France. I really want to know what happened there. But there's. I'm going through.
Like it's he got interrupted. Yes, it was like a.
Yeah.
Let it go, Greg. Just let it go.
Oh, okay. So
not
I'm
lying,
good. I'm good. The other episode that really hit me was when you guys were in Lima.
Yes, the food arcs.
The food, yeah. I mean, the apple thing, the biopiracy. I mean,
Yeah.
I wrote that down. I'm like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
But the maca, the superfood, if I'm saying that right,
Mhm.
is one of the questions. I'm like, is there? Because there's probably a whole nother series on this and how is like big pharma or just big business. I mean, if these foods are out there and we know the properties of them, we know what they can do. Why are we not why in 2020 am I watching a show on Netflix at the age of 42 just learning about this when I should have known about these things forever or even John and I were talking about this. John has maintained fitness most of his life. I dove really deep into my Wisconsin roots and just started doing meat, cheese, and beer. But just the high carb, low protein, that long life from Sardinia, and you're just like,
Laura,
just looking at Zach when he's eating. I think it was the dessert or something. It was a carb. He's like, I did watch. I didn't have a single carb.
Yeah.
For a year. He's like, this goes totally against what modern fitness trainers are talking about.
However, I do want to say like a little caveat there. Like,
okay,
the other thing to keep in mind with that is like it's also Italy where you're talking about their pasta and their dough. Like their stuff is so much like closer to natural state and is natural state than what we're eating here. Like when you talk about eating carbs there, it's a very different conversation from eating carbs here. It is an important, like, I do think it's important not to demonize carbs, but like, I think that it's also like having predominantly carbs there is very different from having predominantly carbs here.
What really scared me, what really scared me about that episode was when the guy said that you haven't met or you haven't seen anybody that has a high protein diet and they live well into their advanced age. That scared me because America, and I think it's a problem with Hollywood, is that you see Chris Hemsworth or you see these people get into this incredible shape and we all want that magic pill that gets us into that shape. Yeah. So you got to, if you want to look like Jennifer Aniston, all you got to do is drink, lime juice for 48 hours. And then, and most people are like, okay. And they take a pill. And I was one of those guys who just threw protein into myself, very little carbs for a while. And
what scared me is that the body starts. God, I wrote it down and now I don't have my notes with me, but it was like a T minus cell or something like that that isn't good for you at the end stages because it starts mutating and becoming more.
Yeah.
That
I know what
opened
you're
my
talking about.
eyes. Yeah, that opened my eyes. That scared me.
Yeah, and I've heard like some doctors say like depending on what you're wanting, like if you're looking for longevity, then no, you don't want to be doing that. But if you are looking for your most vital state in your current state, then like you want to be getting that level of protein, or you're wanting to be able to get that. I was gonna say, because you had asked the question about like superfoods and maca and why we don't know about those, and I think it's kind of interesting because I think that there is a level of like when you a lot of things comes down to money and what's profitable, you know, and I think that yes, like when you talk about pharmaceuticals, that's what people are going to push. And when you have natural remedies for things, the people who want to make the profit, you're going to be less likely to hear about those things. And I have often seen it as well. You know, when people talk about natural remedies, people get made fun of. Like they kind of get called like,
you're right.
People get called quacks. And I really believe that, look, there are some quacks out there, but I actually think that people who are threatened by natural remedies or threatened by alternative thinking and ideas, an easy way to debunk those alternative ideas is to call people a quack, you know, and then nobody wants to listen to the quack. But I think the other thing that on the flip side, in terms of, and that's kind of where I think biopiracy came in a little bit, is that if everybody started going out and buying maca, then you also have the negative effect of like, is it being overconsumed? Like maca in its best form is grown and it's in Peru. And so, you know, and that's the whole thing, was like you had people who came and took it out of there and tried to grow it in their own country and in their own area, and it didn't actually produce the same benefits.
Sure.
And so there's a level of like, I think what's important is being conscious about what we're putting into our bodies, and why we share these stories in the show is like, we can talk about maca there, but also we live in the US. Like we should also look into what grows here. What are superfoods that grow natural to our area that, you know, we could be taking instead of prescription drugs, that we could be taking and we could be consuming. But I think it is sort of just being conscious about what it is that we're putting into our bodies and seeking the most natural, because I mean, I think at the end of the day, we are human and we want to be human. And I've heard someone say this once, and I don't remember who it was, otherwise I'd properly quote them, but they were saying like, the more you are what you eat. And so if you're eating junk food, if you're eating processed foods, like, because food is communication. So the more you eat real food, the more you become real as a person. The more you eat fake food, your body doesn't know how to process it. And so it's like it's a weird thing, and some people could call me a quack for saying it, but like it's thinking about what's the most natural thing for us to be eating, and what's like, and also seasonally, what is the most vital thing we could be giving to ourselves. So
well,
so
I
it's
think
just really go ahead, Greg,
the same adage of, you know, garbage in, garbage out. I mean, it's that same type of thought process with your diet.
Yeah.
And John and I talked about this even before, like after watching the show and talking to my wife, who's done a lot of this research already, kind of like you did, you know, figuring stuff out. And I was like, she's like, I've been telling you this stuff for years. You watch one Netflix series and now all of a sudden you want to start doing stuff. And I'm like, yes.
It happens. Sometimes, like, that's the thing, is that it often can't come from our loved ones. It has to come from other people.
It came from Zac Efron. You know.
So my daughter's told, she's like, well, of course he's right. But like, I'm the guy who, like, we just got rid of our raised gardens because we weren't using them. Like, I'm like, well, this is just taking up space. The wood is rotting. I'm going to get rid of it. Now I'm like, I made a huge mistake.
Yeah, Laura, after the Sardina episode, Greg and I both called each other and go, how do we not eat meat anymore?
Yeah,
how do we do this?
In Wisconsin do I and with 3 teenagers in the house?
Listen,
how do I do
I'll
that?
tell you, I eat meat. I am not one of the anti-meaters in the world. Yes, I am not the meatless. I actually, and again, I have done my own research on
The meatless. I like that.
I am not
Well,
the meatless.
But I own a smoker, so
getting more veggies into our diet is definitely
needs to happen.
There's a shift that needs to happen. I think there's no question to that. But I personally don't think that we should be villainizing meat, because I actually don't think that the science is not fully there on that one.
Right. Greg, you have anything that you would like to immediately ask her? Because she's really gracious with her time, and I don't want to take up too much more time. Because she has to go through the gauntlet. And she
oh, that's right, the gauntlet. I totally forgot. There are so many things that I want to talk about, but I'm gonna stop.
Too.
No, that's all right. I am here, so you do what you need to do.
Greg, ask a couple more. Sounds like she likes us so far.
So I mean, when I was watching the show and I knew we were talking to you, and like John said, I became a fan of your Instagram, so I knew who to look for. I saw you, I believe, for just a quick second. Was it Costa Rica, where you guys were helping that family with cleanup?
Yes.
And Puerto Rico.
Or Puerto Rico, yes.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah. First off, that was so cool. Did like, how did that happen? Was that like you set up like, we're just going to go talk to these people? Because sometimes, you're looking at things, you're like, was that as spontaneous as it seemed?
It actually was pretty spontaneous, like not day of, but day before. Mm-hmm. We had so the mayor was taking us around to these different sites, and when we and actually I was with them for that one, but we had visited that area, and when we visited, it came up about the fact that they had missed the day that it could have been cleared away, and her husband was disabled, which is why he couldn't get it cleared away. And so anyway, that was when we were like, we asked, like, if we can pay for someone to come take this away, could we clear it for you? Yeah. So it was spontaneous. I mean, it was the day before, but it definitely wasn't something that we planned like weeks in advance. And that often happens. Like, you go in with an idea, or you kind of go in with these different segments in mind, but understanding that when you show up, you kind of have to be willing to roll either with the negative punches, but even with the positive ones too. Like, something might present itself and you're like, oh wait, actually we need to adjust ourselves because this is a really good storyline. And look, everything that you do it's a little bit of a risk. You don't know, at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to resonate with people. And even, some of the people that we chose to highlight, like some people agreed with them, some people didn't agree with them. Like what we do, it's you sort of kind of take a little bit of a gamble, but I also think that's an important part of storytelling. If nothing can be perfect, like we aren't perfect. And so what we have to do, and I think Mike and I, it's very important to us as a team, is like we take ownership of it. And so if we put something out that perhaps we were kind of off with, like you have the humility to say, you know what, you're right, like we could have filmed that one differently, or we could have done that differently. But I think for the most part, you have to just trust your instincts and know that at the end of the day, our goal is to tell the best story possible. So if we get a spur of the moment story, you do a quick search, you do a quick kind of vetting process, but you kind of just have to go with it and know that like you take ownership of whatever the outcome is.
Yeah.
All right.
So nope. There one more thing here, John.
Get him, Greg. Get him.
The other thing that I was just, I think Zach and I shared that mind blowing moment.
Or at least you like to think so.
The commune that they went to.
Yeah.
Like, and Zach's like, there's just a bunch of women coming out of this hut. What the hell's going on? And you're looking at it, you're like, okay, what is this? I mean, just the whole thing. I mean, did they have? I mean, it looked like tropical island, just commune, but did they have power? Did they have plumbing? Or I mean, what was it? Was just all living in the jungle, huh?
It was living in the jungle. It was. It's funny because we had such a fascinating experience, and it was like we were there. I think less than 24 hours, but we didn't get it on camera. But like that's where one of our editors told me, they were like, Laura, as a producer, you just need to carry a camera around and you start filming this stuff. And you know, we all showed up, and you know, we had been exhausted as a crew. And we didn't know what we were getting into, but it was definitely like we're there like not even 20 minutes, and you know, we're set up into these different rooms that have like mosquito nets over the bed, and they're like, here's and then they're like, okay, everybody needs a flashlight because they're like, you're in the jungle, and they're like, you just don't know what animals are going to come out in the middle of the night. Yeah.
No.
And like we're getting this quick like kind of tour in this thing, and they're like, and the conch shell blows at this time, and you have 15 minutes to show up or whatever it was, and just like, where are we? What is it?
It was, you're like, is this a cult? Is he the cult leader? Because as you're pulling up, you're like, did they have to shoot this twice to be like, okay, you guys got to put clothes on. There's no way Netflix is going to allow this. Come on, guys.
It definitely was. It was an interesting experience, and like I said, I don't like being in. It was oddly one of those places where they were all like, it's very free, and it's very, you know, like there was a sense of freedom, but it did not, for me, it did not feel free. Like there was still a level of there was still a level of rules and a level of conformity that for me.
Yeah. I really like. I'm like, it was one of those things where I had to like stop working, and I'm like, what is this? Are they going to start? Are they going to start chanting? Are they going to start recruiting Zach into some kind of thing? What's going on?
I don't know if there was any recruitment, but there was definitely like there was a cacao ceremony that we had. There was like everyone had to go around a circle, and before we ate, everyone had to go around and like say their favorite food or favorite fruit of the moment. Like I said, I think the idea of it, and like most people like that. Like I think the whole point was like trying to show community. And like for me, I was just like, I don't like being told what to do. I don't want to tell you. I'm the I'm like, I don't want to be conformed. I don't.
Yeah.
I am not on conch time. Okay.
Their whole thing seemed. I mean, they were really into it, and it seemed very natural. But at the same time, you're like, there's probably some free love going on. I mean, you just what is happening? Like, this guy's got 17 wives. They all live here. What's happening?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you know, again, you kind of go into these different stories and these different situations, and you know, even as a storyteller, like I said, I don't necessarily like love every situation or love everything, but you find the best in it, and it still has its purpose. You know, it's like that's the thing is it's like even what they're doing in that community, like it spoke to kind of what we were exploring with that episode.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And everything with permaculture and sort of, you know, learning how to use your land and learning how to grow things that are natural to that environment. And, you know, I think that it all sort of plays a role, but it's definitely interesting. You have to,
it's still fascinating.
Yeah. You have to be willing to tell stories that like, you're like, I don't really know how I feel about this, but like, it's gonna at least start conversation at the end of the day. That's the goal.
Absolutely. I have two questions for you.
Okay.
The first one, I don't know what that little valuable thing was. I think you guys were on a river, and I remember you sticking out your hand saying, "Throw it to me, I can catch. I've played softball."
Yeah.
How many takes did it take before you caught it?
It was just one. It was.
And you caught it?
I did, yeah.
What did it taste like?
It was actually kind of bitter because it's camu, and
Yeah, that's right. Camu.
like there's certain ones that they picked, and like I had the one that I had was green, and so I don't know if it was like, I don't know if it means it wasn't fully ripe yet. I can't remember. But whatever it was, it actually kind of had like for me, it was like very bitter.
Okay.
But it's like very high in vitamin C vitamin C.
Yes.
One of those foods.
How long ago was the filming of this?
Yeah, that's a good question.
2018. We filmed.
Oh wow.
2 months. We filmed from like end of August, beginning of September through mid-November. So I guess 2.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So through this entire journey of filming this show, what was your favorite part?
Oh man, that's a big
Yeah.
question. I will give two. I know that that's not what you asked, but I'm going to give two. I think
all right.
the first one was Iceland. It was putting together Iceland, and so much of that was instinct, and it was a practice of me trusting myself. And then I had actually said, like, because previously other people were kind of running the sets, and so I had said, like, I'm putting the show together, like I'd really like to run this one. And so when I got, like, I think it was such a special experience because I got to put it together, in pre-production, and then I got to go run it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so kind of powerful and like magical because you're kind of in this place that like seems like another world and another planet. But I think that was really special for me because like I kind of stepped into my true self. Like I love leading people. I love leading a team. I love engaging with talent. Like I love overseeing everything and engaging with all of our different guests. And so I think for me that was really special. But then I think the other one of the other most special moments was like when we were in Iquitos, we went to that little town, I think it's called Mishana, if I remember correctly, where they have the ayahuasca center. And we initially weren't supposed to stay in the jungle, but we had an issue with, I hate calling it an issue. There were, the Zach's fans found out that we were in Iquitos. And so, and sometimes you get an influx of fans, and it makes it really difficult. So we ended up staying kind of spur of the moment at this ayahuasca center. And it was, when Zach talks about us being a family as a crew, that was a very real thing. And we had just like spent all of this time filming for 2.5 months. And this was like our very last episode, one of our very last shoots. We had just found out that Darren's house was like close to the fire.
Yeah.
So we were like in the middle of the jungle. There was no service. And they had like made us dinner. And it just felt like that was one of my favorite moments because it was just like we had this long day in the jungle where everybody was exhausted, and we just sort of had this dinner together. And then afterwards it was like camp, where like they had these hammocks out on the porch, and we were all just hanging out in these hammocks. And that was just special to me because it was like, here's a group of people who have all come together because, yes, we're all working and it's our jobs, but we came together about something we're really passionate about. And we believed in this show. And even though we had no idea if the show was going to actually do well, but we had just poured ourselves into making this really amazing show. And, here we are just all like kind of kicking it on these hammocks.
Yeah.
And, and Zach was among us. And that was kind of what was special too, is that like, we never treated him like he was a celebrity. We just treated him like he was an everyday person. And for us, he was like, he was just a friend.
Yeah. It's just Zach.
Yeah. And so I think to me that was a special moment for me because it was like, it showed the camaraderie. And I think that there's an element of that comes through in the show of how we bonded as a crew. And so those are my two favorite moments, I think.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Laura, it's time to get to the gauntlet.
What?
Okay. This is something that Greg, you're actually you're patient zero.
This is so great. I'm so excited.
You were the inaugural gauntlet runner.
Right.
All right.
So you want me
Go
to
ahead.
explain, or are you going to do it?
Yeah, no,
I-
go for it. Go for it, Greg.
So when we first got started, again, this podcast was born out of two college buddies who just have conversations, and we kind of went, we should record these. Like, these are kind of fun. So these are questions that have come out through the past year of our podcast together that are things that people just have different opinions about. And we just decided that as part of our show, we used to do like a fact of the day, which was a randomized fact that John would find on the internet. And sometimes they were great, sometimes they were duds. But we kind of decided that we're going to put together a 5-question kind of quick hit. And we're going to see what our guests think about some of our topics that we've discussed on past podcasts. So,
Okay, cool.
John,
So are you ready?
I think so.
Here we go. The first question, Laura Coconato, because I love saying that last name.
Coconato.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of works in both ways. Like, it could be Dr. Coconato, like villain, or it can be, hey, it's Coconato. She's over here. Cool. It
I
works
know.
both ways.
It
It's
fits my
amazing.
personalities too, because I could be really nice, or I could be like, "Let's go, we got to move."
What kind of nicknames did you have in high school with a last name like that?
People always shorten it to Coco. Everywhere I go,
Okay.
and like I have 4 siblings, and like for all 5 of us, we usually always get called Coco.
All
Yeah.
right, here goes. Question 1.
Question 1:
Pie or cake?
Pie.
Nice. All right, she's doing good so far. Okay.
All right, we're good.
It's
We're good.
like she's almost studied us, Greg. Here we go. Number 2. Could Jack have fit on the door with Rose in Titanic?
Oh yes.
Yeah,
All right, 2
Yeah.
for 2. 2 for 2.
Yep.
That selfish little Rose.
she
Anyway,
killed him. She killed him.
anyway,
Sweet old lady.
body heat's an important thing when you're freezing. Just FYI out there. Number 3. This is an important one. You're already 2 for 2. We're really proud of you, Coco. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Oh, 3 for 3. 3 for 3. We have a friend. Okay.
Great. This is great.
This is great.
So happy.
Number 4. This is important. Were Ross and Rachel on a break? Friends episode. The show Friends.
Oh, I thought I was waiting for more.
No.
Yes.
They were on a break.
They were on a break. They're on a break.
They're on a break. They're on a break. That's 4 for 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Here we go.
Let's hope I don't ruin it for number 5. Okay, go.
I know. Here it goes. I'm kind of nervous, Greg, because I didn't think it'd go this well. Here we go. Number 5. After finishing your cereal, do you drink your milk or do you like throw it away?
Oh, I drink the milk.
Oh, 5 for 5, ladies and gentlemen. Beat that. Oh my gosh, the next guests have a hard time. Laura Coconato, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time. You've been so gracious. Hopefully, if I don't know, maybe if there's a season 2 out there, we'd love to talk to you about that if that ever comes up.
Or
So-
really
You know
any
what?
other project you got going on.
If season 2 does manifest, I will 100% be back and talk about it.
Awesome, very cool. Anything? Can anybody where can people find you, Laura, if they wanted to check you out or?
I guess my Instagram is probably you've talked about my Instagram.
I would
so
agree.
that's probably the best. That is probably the best place to connect with me. And I do if you message me, I do try to check those and will engage with people. But
And it's
I
really
think-
you, not just one of your people.
I have no people.
I'm my own people.
I am my own people. But yeah, it's Laliza Coco, if I remember that
Yep.
correctly.
We
Yes,
did.
Link to that in the description down below.
We will definitely link to that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
No, don't know. Thank you. For anybody out there, thank you very much for listening. Laura's out of here. Greg's out of here. Oh, Greg, what do you like to say to the folks out there?
Oh, well, it's really, we've talked about it a little bit on the show. It's something that I think we very much covered here today. Little life lesson, don't be a douche.
Yeah. All right. So for Johnny and the Greg and our special guest, Laura Coconato, podcast out. Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.